Welcome to our first week of Dynamic Duos. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to look at examples of dynamic duos from the Bible and see what they teach us about our relationships today. Many relationships today can be described as shallow, inauthentic, unreliable, or lacking altogether. Loneliness is the reality for a lot of us. Even when we're physically surrounded by people, we feel emotionally and spiritually alone. And we need healthy, meaningful, authentic relationships that make us better people, that care for us on the tough days, celebrate with us on the good days, where we can truly be ourselves, relationships that are dynamic. Now, some of you are in the process of making new relationships right now. You're sitting with your new house church in some living room and you're still trying to remember each other's names. This study will help you all get to know each other and develop the strong spiritual connections that we need. Be open and honest with one another, listen to each other, give this group a chance, because if you commit to showing up and being a part of this group, I promise you will not regret it. Others of you are sitting with the same group that you've been sitting with for years, and this study is going to give you all an opportunity to grow even closer. It'll challenge you to be more authentic, it'll strengthen your prayer life as a group, and it will encourage you to dig deeper into the scriptures together. For all of us, my hope and prayer is that 6 weeks from now, all of our relationships are in the process of becoming stronger, healthier, and more meaningful, that we feel more connected and less isolated than we do today. Now, all of us have acquaintances, coworkers, relatives, neighbors, Facebook friends whose random updates we always follow. Most of us have a few friends that we can hang out with or chat with, and some of us are lucky enough to even have 1 or 2 good friends that we can talk to about anything and everything. But too many of us lack the type of dynamic friendship where we feel like we can totally be ourselves, be completely authentic and honest, share our lives, share our faith, and even pray together. These are the type of relationships we're going to work on building over the next 6 weeks. Our mission here at The Water's Edge is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and each other. Now, the first part's not that surprising for a church, but the second part of that is just as important as the first, because these two things really work hand in hand. It's really hard to have a flourishing relationship with Jesus without other people walking on that journey with you. And relationships with other people aren't easy. Jesus teaches us and shows us and helps us be better at relationships. We need other people, and even though relationships can be difficult and sometimes disappointing, a life without meaningful relationships is going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more disappointing. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships or relationships with your spouse. We need meaningful, authentic, supportive friendships, real connections to other people outside our house. Unfortunately, these type of relationships are pretty rare these days. We are less connected and more lonely today than at any other point in human history. There is no shortage of studies and books and TED Talks to confirm this, but most of us don't need to read a book or listen to a TED Talk to tell us what we already know. We know loneliness. Loneliness does not mean being physically alone. Loneliness is feeling emotionally and spiritually alone. You can experience loneliness when you're physically isolated, and you can feel it when you're surrounded by crowds of people. You can be lonely with no friends. You can be lonely with dozens of friends. The quantity doesn't always mean quality. Loneliness is feeling like you have no one to talk to when you're struggling. It's needing help with something and not knowing who you can call. Loneliness is having good news but no one to celebrate with. Loneliness is feeling like no one truly knows and understands the real you. Our world is busier than ever, but we feel more insignificant. Our world is louder, but we feel like no one can really hear us. Our world is full of updates and pictures of all our friends, but we know less about them and how they're really doing than ever. We live in a world of what I'll call a deceptive connection. We think we're connected to people in all these ways, but it's not usually a real connection. I can go on Facebook and see where my friend went on vacation this summer, what sport her kids are playing, and even what she had for dinner last weekend. And that makes me feel connected to her, but I have no idea how she's actually doing. I don't know if she's struggling or happy. I don't know how things are going at work or home or with her family. It's a deceptive connection. We may know a lot of people, neighbors, friends, coworkers, the other parents at school, even people at church. but we tend to know a lot of names. We don't tend to know a lot of their stories. And people may know our name, but do they know our story? Even some of our closest friends, the people we stay in touch with and go out to dinner with and hang out with on the weekend, most of us only share a small part of our lives with those people. We're comfortable sharing the good times, but not the hard times. We tell stories about what's happening in our lives, but we don't want to talk about what's going on in our heads or our hearts. We spend time with these friends, but the conversation stays surface level. The connection is deceptive. We're not as connected to one another as we think, and so we still feel alone. Now, in this series, we're going to look at some dynamic duos from the Bible and what those relationships can teach us about our relationships. We're going to take some time to look at our current relationships and be honest about what's missing. How can we be more connected and better connected? We're going to start taking small steps each week towards stronger and deeper relationships, creating relationships where we can share our whole lives, creating relationships where we feel known and the other person feels known by us. We're going to look at 5 aspects of healthy, deep, flourishing, meaningful relationships and how we can develop relationships that have these 5 qualities. 5 things that dynamic duos do. They learn together, they encourage each other, they make each other better, care for one another, and they challenge each other. Our study is going to start at the very beginning in Genesis chapter 1. God created the world, and it was good. God created light and dark, and it was good. God created the seas and the land and saw that it was good. God created the sun, the moon, the stars, and saw that it was good. God created animals, and they were good. And then God created man and saw that he was good too. God placed this man in paradise, a perfect world. But even in paradise, God saw one thing that was not good. And God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. Even in a perfect world, it's not good for us to be alone. So it's definitely not good for us to be alone in a broken and dysfunctional world. So God gave Adam a partner, Eve. Adam and Eve were the original dynamic duo. They knew each other completely, but they didn't feel any shame. They were accepted, they were teammates, they took care of each other, they did life together. And then sin and brokenness entered the world and their relationship broke too. Their communication broke down, they had serious conflict, they went from teammates to competitors, they went from supporting each other to blaming each other, they hid from one another, and not just their bodies, they hid their feelings, their fears, their questions, their problems, their joys. They completely hid themselves from each other just like we do today. Adam and Eve used leaves and trees to hide from one another, but we use social media and fake smiles and half-truths. We were created for the type of community they experienced at the beginning of the story, but we live in a world that looks a lot more like the end of the story. That's why our house church small groups are so important at the Water's Edge. We need people that we can talk to about life, faith, worries, joy. People we can pray with and play with. People that celebrate with us and comfort us. Some of you have been in your groups a long time and you've gotten to experience these things, and there's a lot of cool stories from those groups. Some of you are in brand new groups and you're starting this journey today. Either way, I hope you all grow closer as a group through this series. After this video, you're going to take a moment in your small groups to take an assessment of your current relationships and connections. I'm guessing most of us will notice some holes in our relationships or some areas of isolation. Maybe you'll recognize some of those deceptive connections that aren't what you thought they were. Our goal is that 6 weeks from now, we can take that assessment again and realize we're just a little bit more connected. We're a little less lonely. That the friendships we already have today have gotten just a little bit deeper, and that we feel more known and loved for who we are, and that we're able to offer that same connection back to others that might feel alone. So as you head into your small group time, be honest with each other, be honest with yourself, expect to learn from each other, push yourself to share and participate, commit to those weekly challenges, commit to the Bible reading plan. I hope you all have very meaningful discussions.